What were you recording?
M3, BMW M3.
Oh.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So I just got back from our 2-week vacation in Europe, and honestly, something that stuck up more than what my wife thinks were unforgettable romantic moments is where the heck are the pickup trucks in Europe? I'm talking about the big boys, the Ram, the Silverado, the F-Series. Here in the US, these things own the road. They're everywhere, from the job sites to the grocery store parking lots. But in Europe, crickets. It's like they don't even exist. And I live in a big city, San Diego, California, and I always see these big rugged vehicles everywhere trying to fit in small parking spots. I started digging, and the difference is absolutely wild. In North America, we basically dominate the global market, pulling in 77.5% of the revenue. We bought about 2.8 million of these trucks just in 2023 alone. Meanwhile, in the whole entire European Union, all of it only sold 144,000 pickups last year. Mostly were smaller trucks from Toyota, and what I saw most, the Ford Ranger. But what do Europeans drive? Just little four-bangers. But I must admit that lately I've seen a lot more larger vehicles than in the past. Even as little as 5 years ago, I used to see manual transmissions driving everywhere with four-bangers under the hood, but it's not the case anymore. Europeans are moving towards small hatchbacks, but they do gravitate more towards small crossovers everywhere as well. It's not an accident, it's a fundamental split. And I've broken it down to the 5 main reasons why I believe that the great American truck is essentially illegal, unaffordable, or just plain useless across the pond. Reason number one, the punishment tax. Penalizing size and emissions. If you thought the US were bad, especially states like California and New York, you haven't seen anything until you look at how European governments use fees to keep the big trucks out. Most European Union countries charge vehicle taxes based on how much emissions your car spits. They set the bar low, and the big American V8 engines just smash right through the top of the scale. For example, in the UK, if you bring over a full-size pickup that emits too much emissions, they hit you with a first-year road tax. A one-time registration fee of £54.90, that's over $6,500, and that's a lot of money. That's the financial deterrent right there. They're just literally designing the tax system to make owning a big, high-emissions vehicle economically irrational. And some countries like Latvia even pile on annual taxes based on the car's engine volume and weight. It's a huge prohibitive cost that most average consumers simply won't pay. Reason number two, fuel prices. So let's say you're rich and you want to pay the initial cost, those $6,500 tax fine. Great, now you have to drive it. And the second reason this beast die on the vine is the price of gasoline. Simply put, fuel costs twice as much, maybe even more than what we pay here at home. In April of 2024, the average price for gasoline in the European Union was about €6 per US gallon, while in the US we were paying an average of $3.30 per gallon that same year. They use these high taxes on fuel to fund infrastructure and other things. Now, consider a typical US truck getting maybe 18 miles to the gallon. If a European driver covers about 25,000 kilometers a year, which is totally normal, they will spend about $5,800 annually on gas alone. The math just doesn't work. The relentless punishing cost of filling up that huge gas tank forces everyone to choose more efficient, practical cars. It's a lifestyle you just cannot afford over there. Reason number three, cars are just too big. This one is physical, or American trucks are simply too big for Europe. It's even common for car companies to produce different versions of the same nameplate depending the intended market. The American Accord has traditionally been a bigger car than the one sold in Europe. A lot of European cities, the ones everyone loves to visit, were built centuries ago, long before cars existed. The planning emphasizes walking, biking, and public transit. The streets are narrow. I remember driving on the streets of Seville, Spain, a couple of years ago, and at some point, our rental, which was a Volkswagen, a small crossover, was hitting both of the sidewalks at the same time. Our streets, meanwhile, are wide and prioritize the car. When you look at a full-size pickup, often over 2 meters wide, is frequently too wide for a standard on-street parking space. I mean, new cars are already getting 1 centimeter wider every 2 years, and nearly half of the new cars that are sold today are just too wide for current street parking minimums. Imagine trying to parallel parking an F-150 in Paris. Good luck. Some cities like Paris, perhaps, are even talking about charging higher parking fees, especially for big SUVs, just to push people back towards smaller cars. Plus, safety advocates point out that the blunt, high front end of our large, light trucks increase the risk of serious injury to pedestrians or cyclists by 90% and the risk of a fatality by almost 200% compared to smaller vehicles. They simply don't want that danger on their dense, pedestrian-heavy streets. Reason number 4, the emissions to safety compliance. Beyond the taxes, there are the actual rules that make US trucks impossible to mass manufacture and sell in Europe. The European Union has super strict emission standards. If a manufacturer tries to sell a big V8 gas guzzler and misses the fleet average, the penalty is severe. Saying a high-volume and inefficient American truck will bankrupt manufacturers with fines, so they just don't bother. And here's another critical point. Europe has mandatory pedestrian protection requirements for the front end of cars and vans. The US has no such federal requirement. Our trucks are engineered tall and blunt, making them far more dangerous to people outside the vehicle. To sell them there, manufacturers will have to fundamentally redesign the truck, and it's just not worth the hassle or the expense. Reason number 5, utility and culture, the reign of the van. Finally, let's talk about why we buy trucks versus why Europeans need a utility vehicle. In the US, the pickup has become a status symbol. It represents power, self-reliance, and the ability to do anything. We buy it as a lifestyle vehicle, even if we never haul anything bigger than a load of groceries. 4 out of the top 10 best-selling vehicles in 2024 in the United States were pickup trucks. And while I acknowledge that a big chunk of this number must go to fleet sales, a lot of what I see on the road do not look like base models of these huge trucks. Furthermore, 5 out of the top 10 best-selling trucks in the United States are full-size trucks. In Europe, they're all about pragmatic functionality and efficiency. If the average person needs to haul a couch or moving boxes, they just rent a van for the day. They aren't buying a massive vehicle for the 1% of the time they might use the bed. For the tradesmen who do need a utility vehicle, they mostly prefer the high-roof van called a light commercial vehicle or LCV. Why? Ease of use. The cargo area in a van sits much lower to the ground than a typical high-riding pickup chassis. This makes loading and unloading heavy equipment all day long much easier on your back. The proof is in the numbers. There are about 29.5 million vans on the road in the European Union, proving that when it comes to work, the van is the true champion, not the truck. Station wagons of all sizes, mostly compact, inundate the European streets, but it is a segment almost completely absent from the American car palette. If light trucks weren't that necessary as we claim they are here, Europeans will be buying small car-based fuel-efficient trucks like the Ford Maverick or the Santa Cruz. But they're not. They're simply not interested. Just like we're not interested in driving their silly station wagons or vans in the United States. I only spotted a handful of trucks in Europe on my last trip, most of them being Ford Rangers, and also saw the Toyota Hilux, and even some Mercedes-Benz trucks. It's called the Class X, that is a Quasimodo with ties to Nissan and Mitsubishi. The majority of larger lifestyle vehicles that I saw in Europe were SUVs like the G-Wagon, Range Rovers, Defenders, even some American offerings like the Wrangler or the Grand Cherokee. And I also saw people driving big V8s, but they were under the hood of vehicles from Rolls-Royce, Bentley, and even a Ford Mustang that I saw out there. Again, these V8s were just not powering trucks. And it didn't matter if we were in the countryside. Most people drive smaller cars, not trucks, not even there. So there you have it. The big American pickup is a casualty of totally different priorities. It's too expensive to buy, too expensive to run, too big to fit, too dirty to comply, and simply less useful than a van for actual commercial work. It's just a fascinating look at how different regulations, infrastructure, and culture can shape a continent's entire automotive landscape. And all of this brings me to the next question. Why do we drive trucks and swear that everyone needs one when we hardly ever use it for what a truck is intended to be? Your guess is as good as mine. Listen, I'm not saying I wouldn't like owning a Raptor or a TRD Pro, but definitely not as a daily driver or as an only car. The only time I owned a truck was over 20 years ago, and I never found it too practical, so never again. But I want to hear what you guys think. Are we just addicted to the truck lifestyle? Drop it in the comments below, hit that like button, and if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing for more car-related content. My name is Juan Carlos, and I'll see you next time.